Every love story you know ends the same way, in pain. Think about it. The songs, the films, the poems, they all speak of love as the highest force, the answer to all human suffering. And yet, behind every vow, every promise, every kiss, waits the same shadow: loss, betrayal, emptiness. We are told that love will complete us, that it will give us safety, meaning, even eternity. But Schopenhauer saw something far darker. To him, love was not salvation. It was nature's most cunning illusion, a veil placed over your eyes so that you walk willingly into the very suffering you would otherwise resist. And maybe you felt this, the dizzying high of falling in love, only to find yourself later standing in ruins, wondering if any of it was real. The very person you believed would heal you becomes the one who wounds you most. Here is the brutal truth. If love were truly about happiness, the world would not be filled with so many broken hearts, divorces, silent resentments, and lonely nights. If love were what we imagine, it would not lead us to despair. So why does it? Schopenhauer's answer is chilling. Because love is not designed for you. It is not your story. It is the story of life itself, and life cares nothing for your happiness. Love is the mask the will wears, and behind that mask, the will demands only one thing: that life continues, no matter the cost to you. So when you fall in love, what you feel is not freedom. It is captivity. You are not choosing, you are being chosen, moved like a piece in a game older than humanity itself. Most people never want to see this. They would rather live with the illusion than confront the truth. But if you've ever asked yourself why love always seems to hurt, if you've ever wondered why the deepest intimacy can turn into the deepest wound, then you're already closer to the truth than most. And here's my promise. In this video, we will walk beyond the veil and face the truth that almost no one dares to speak. The truth that love does not save you. Love exposes you. Love uses you, and it always ends in pain. But this is only the first layer of the problem. We live in a world obsessed with love. From childhood, we are fed the myth: find the one who completes you, and you will finally be whole. Stories end with weddings, songs end with devotion, films fade out on the promise of forever. But reality tells a different story. Half of marriages collapse. Affairs rip apart families. The same couples who once swore eternal loyalty can barely stand to sit in the same room years later. And it isn't just about divorce or betrayal. Even the best love stories carry the seed of tragedy. One dies before the other. The passion fades. The dream becomes routine. In the end, pain always arrives. So what's happening here? Why does something that feels divine in the beginning so often feel like hell in the end? Schopenhauer's answer is as radical as it is devastating. He believed that love is not about happiness, not about joy, not even about you. Love is the instrument of something greater, the will to life. The will is blind. It doesn't care about your dreams or your peace. It only wants one thing: that life continues. And for that, it needs you. When you fall in love, what you're really feeling is not your freedom. It's biology chaining you to its purpose. Think about it. You believe you've chosen someone because of their smile, their soul, the way they get you. But Schopenhauer would tell you this: it wasn't really you who chose. It was the species, whispering through you, forcing you to pick the partner most likely to carry its project forward. That's why love feels overwhelming. That's why it blinds reason, why it shakes your body, why it drives people to madness. The will needs you to be deceived. Because if you saw the truth, that love is not about eternal bliss, but about reproduction, you might resist, and nature cannot allow that. And this is where the tragedy begins. The very force that draws two people together is not concerned with their happiness. Once the will gets what it wants, it leaves them, and the couple is left staring at each other, confused, empty, sometimes even hostile. You thought you were writing a love story, but you were playing a role in a script written by nature long before you existed. And here's the bitter price. When love collapses, the pain is not an accident. It is built into the design. Because you were never meant to be fulfilled. You were meant to be used. Most people can't bear this thought. That's why they fall in love again and again. Not because they are foolish, but because illusion is easier than truth. We would rather suffer another heartbreak than face the reality that love itself is a trap. But this, Schopenhauer insists, is only the beginning. Because the will does not stop at stealing your joy. It goes further. It convinces you that the very suffering you endure is meaningful, that pain is proof of depth, that heartbreak makes you human. And here is the darker question. What if even that belief is just another trick? At this point, we need to strip away the last illusion. You may still believe love, despite its dangers, is at least yours. An expression of your soul, your freedom, your unique taste. Schopenhauer destroys this comfort. He writes, "Love is the will of the species, disguised as the will of the individual." Let those words sink in. When you fall in love, it feels like the most personal decision you'll ever make. Yet Schopenhauer says it is the most impersonal. What you mistake for your deepest choice is in fact the species choosing through you. This is why love overwhelms logic. Think back to when you were in love, how reason failed, how you excused the inexcusable, how you lost yourself. Why does love make intelligent people act like fools? Because reason never had control. It was never your decision. It was biology wearing the mask of romance. That is why the stakes feel so high, why heartbreak feels like death. The will cannot allow you to treat love lightly. It must feel cosmic, eternal, sacred, or else you might resist. And here's the cruelty. The will's goal is reproduction, not happiness. Once the chain of life is secured, your passion fades. The very intensity that brought you together becomes the emptiness that drives you apart. This explains why so many relationships collapse, not from lack of effort, but from a strange, unspoken shift. The magic is gone, and no one can explain why. Schopenhauer would say, because the will has moved on. Look at the modern world. Dating apps turn attraction into an endless scroll. People chase the one, only to feel disillusioned months later. Divorce rates climb. Even celebrities who seem to have it all, wealth, beauty, power, cannot escape the same pattern of obsession followed by collapse. It is not that they are weak, it is that they are human. And to be human is to be a vessel of the will. But here lies the paradox. The more intense the love, the greater the suffering. And this is not a bug in the system. It is the design. Think of Romeo and Juliet. We call it the greatest love story ever told, but it is a story of death, despair, and waste. That is why it resonates. Because unconsciously, we know love ends not in salvation, but in loss. Or think of your own life. The relationship you thought would last forever. The person you swore you couldn't live without. Where are they now? Perhaps they're gone. Perhaps they've changed. Perhaps you have. And what remains is not a happily ever after, but a scar. Schopenhauer would say, of course, because the will never cared about your forever. It cared only about the continuation of life. Your suffering was collateral damage. And yet, here is where the deception deepens. Because even in heartbreak, we cling to the belief that pain makes us deeper, more human, more alive. But what if even this belief is another trick of the will to keep us submitting again and again? That is why Schopenhauer's vision is so heavy. It does not flatter us. It does not tell us we are free or that love makes us divine. It tells us we are enslaved, that behind every love poem and every wedding vow stands the same blind, ruthless force. And the question you must face is this: if love is just the mask of the will, then what is the point of giving yourself to it at all? But before you answer, we must descend even deeper into the lives of real people and the examples that show us how this truth plays out, not in theory, but in the flesh of our existence. Philosophy can sound abstract, but Schopenhauer's truth about love is not just an idea in a book. It's written into human lives everywhere. Look around and you'll see the pattern. Think of a couple who began with fire in their eyes, promising to die for each other. They gave everything, abandoned friendships, sacrificed stability, believed they had found eternity. And yet, years later, they are strangers living under the same roof. The passion has dried into silence, the once sacred intimacy now replaced with resentment or boredom. Why? Because the will has already taken what it wanted. It drew them together for its purpose. And once that purpose faded, so did the illusion. They believed their love belonged to them, but it never did. Or think of the family. Two people fall in love, swept away by passion. They marry, they have children. For a while, everything seems right. But slowly, the relationship bends under the weight of responsibility. The bond is no longer about the lovers. It is about survival, about raising the next generation. The will has achieved its design. The parents remain together not because of eternal romance, but because of the practical machinery of life. And if they do separate, what is left is often bitterness, broken homes, and scars on the very children who were once the supposed proof of love's triumph. Again, the happiness of the individual is sacrificed to the will of the species. Now let's enter a darker room. The dynamic of the empath and the narcissist. The empath believes love is salvation. They give endlessly. They pour out their heart. They sacrifice themselves. The narcissist consumes, demands, manipulates. At first, the empath believes they can heal the narcissist, that their devotion will transform cruelty into tenderness. But over time, they find themselves drained, their love weaponized against them. Schopenhauer would say this too is no accident. The will has paired opposites for its own experiment. One overflows, the other devours. Neither finds peace. Both are broken. And perhaps you recognize yourself in this story. Maybe you have been the one who loved too much. Maybe you were the one consumed. Finally, step back and look at society itself. Entire cultures are built on the myth of eternal love. Fairy tales end at the wedding. Religions sanctify marriage as if it were divine. Pop culture saturates us with the message that love conquers all. And yet, behind the curtain, the statistics tell a different tale. Divorce, loneliness, cycles of heartbreak, people falling in and out of relationships like moths, burning on the same flame. This is not failure, it is the structure. The myth of eternal love exists because society needs people to keep playing the game. The will cannot function without fresh believers, and so every broken heart is replaced by another hopeful lover stepping into the same cycle. The stage is reset, the script replayed. And maybe as you listen, you feel a sting of recognition. Maybe you're remembering the one who shattered you, the one you thought would be forever. Maybe you're thinking about the nights you begged for love that never came, or the emptiness that followed what once felt divine. If so, you are not alone. You are living the truth Schopenhauer uncovered, that love is not yours, it is not for you. It is the will using you. For Schopenhauer, everything is ruled by the will. Not reason, not morality, not even love as we imagine it, but a blind, endless force that drives all life. The will has only one command: continue. It doesn't care who suffers, who breaks, who despairs. It devours happiness, burns through joy, and leaves behind only more striving. That's why he believed life is essentially suffering. Love is just the bait. Once we are caught, the trap closes. This is a vision of despair. And if we stopped here, the picture would be unbearable. But philosophy never stops at despair. It uses despair as the doorway. Carl Jung shows us another dimension. If love exposes us, it is because intimacy rips away our masks. The closer someone comes, the more they awaken the parts of ourselves we want to hide, our jealousy, our rage, our fears, our shadow. That's why love wounds so deeply, because it doesn't just break your heart, it reveals who you are when all pretenses collapse. Jung teaches that the shadow must be faced. Love forces it to the surface. And so, even when love ends in pain, that pain is not meaningless. It is the mirror that shows you what you would rather not see. Maybe that's why heartbreak cuts so sharply, because it is not only the loss of the other, but the revelation of yourself. And then comes Nietzsche with his thunder. Where Schopenhauer saw resignation and Jung saw integration, Nietzsche saw a challenge. What will you do with the pain? For him, the answer was not escape, but transformation. To look at the cruelty of love, at the betrayal of the will, and to still affirm life. To say yes even to the suffering. This is the path of strength. To love not because it saves you, but because you are strong enough to face the wound. To accept that love ends in pain, and to embrace it anyway. Nietzsche called this the amor fati, the love of fate, the courage to say, even if it destroys me, I will not turn away. Most people cannot do this. They cling to illusions. They tell themselves stories to soften the blow. They need love to be eternal, or at least to appear eternal. But a rare few can look at it directly. They can see that love is suffering and still step into it with open eyes. Not because they are blind, but because they are awake. This is the transformation, from being used by the will to confronting the will, from being dragged by the current to choosing to swim in it knowingly. And maybe this is you. Maybe you've already felt that ordinary love cannot satisfy you, that behind every romance lies a silence too heavy to ignore. If so, know this: you are not broken. You are not cursed. You are awakening. You are beginning to see what philosophers have whispered for centuries, that love's beauty is bound to its cruelty, and that suffering is not the end of the story, but the beginning of transformation. Most people will never hear this truth. They will drown themselves in distractions, chase illusions, or cling to shallow comforts. But if you are here listening, it means you are ready for something heavier, ready to see through the mask, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. But the question remains, if love always ends in pain, then what do we do with that pain? Do we collapse under it? Or do we turn it into strength? That is where we turn next. So we return to the beginning, to the question you may have asked your whole life. Why does love always hurt? Schopenhauer gave us the most brutal answer. Because love was never meant for you. It belongs to the will, and the will does not care if you bleed. Jung revealed the deeper layer, that love wounds us because it strips away our masks, forcing us to face the shadow we would rather deny. And Nietzsche challenged us to go even further, to not only endure this cruelty, but to affirm it, to say yes to the wound, to the betrayal, to the pain. Because it is through this fire that we are burned clean of illusions. Every great love, no matter how sweet, carries its ending inside it. Every vow whispers its own betrayal. Every kiss is already touched by loss. That is why love hurts, because in its beauty lies its cruelty, and in its promise lies its end. But this does not mean love is meaningless. On the contrary, it means love is the most dangerous teacher we will ever meet. It uses us, yes, but in being used, we are forced to awaken. The truth is this: love does not save you. Love exposes you. It exposes your illusions, your shadow, your strength, and in that exposure lies the possibility of transformation. So I leave you with this. If you knew from the beginning that love will always end in pain, would you still choose it? Would you embrace the wound, knowing it will scar you, but also knowing it will shape you? Or would you turn away, choosing safety over fire? Because this is only the first battle. Pain is not the end, it is the door. And in the next chapter, we will step through that door. We will explore the rare power of people who feel too much. Why the very sensitivity that makes you suffer may also be the secret to your strength. Why what breaks you today could one day make you unbreakable. Most people will never see this truth. They will drown in distractions, hiding from themselves. But if you are still here, it means you are ready. Ready to look into the darkness without blinking. Ready to carry the weight of philosophy, not as theory, but as survival.